Hello and welcome to my March month-end wrap-up and April TBR. I finished reading Orley Farm by Anthony Trollope, the third novel in my Chunksters reading challenge, and you can see my review in the info cards above. I rated it as A. I read The Stories of Jacob by Thomas Mann and 161 pages of Young Joseph before bailing on Joseph and his brothers. I reviewed both of these in March and gave it an overall rating of C. I also bailed on The Newcomes by William Makepeace, Thackeray, after 245 pages. It was empty, mindless meanderings, dull, boring, plotless, and with uninteresting characters. I rated this novel a D. I read 3 Inspector Morse novels by Colin Dexter as a substitute for The Newcombs. The first one was Service of All the Dead. It contains no less than 5 murders, and who did what to whom and why is just as much a mystery to me as it was to Sergeant Lewis. Even after Morse has explained it all, I'm still mystified. However, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The writing is intellectually stimulating, the character of Morse is superbly drawn, and the plot is mystifying. My rating for this novel is A, because I want to read it again to see if I can unravel the plot on the second reading. The second Inspector Morse novel was called The Dead of Jericho. It starts off with Morse meeting a very attractive young lady at a party, and they are both attracted to one another, and she gives Morse her address in Jericho. But it is not until 6 months later that Morse turns up at her door on the day on which she has committed suicide. That is stretching coincidences a bit too far. But apart from that, the story is involving, complex and enjoyable. I also read The Riddle of the Third Mile, which I thoroughly enjoyed and didn't understand anything of what was going on. Morse gave a complicated explanation at the end, but it was completely over my head. However, I rate all 3 novels as A, and I donated £10 to Book Aid International on completion. I finished Tara Road by Maeve Binchy in my Recommended by You challenge. It was recommended by Jason of Byways in Bookland. A house swap leads to an unlikely and touching friendship as secrets are unveiled and lives changed. Rhea and Marilyn have never met. They live thousands of miles apart, separated by the Atlantic Ocean, one in a big warm Victorian house in Tara Road, Dublin, and the other in a modern open plan house in New England. 2 more unlikely friends would be hard to find. Rhea's life revolves around her family and friends, while Marilyn's reserve is born of grief. But when each needs a place to escape to, a house exchange seems the ideal solution. Along with the borrowed houses come neighbours and friends, gossip and speculation, as Rhea and Marilyn swap lives for the summer. The novel is 488 pages long, and after the first 200 pages or so, I thought it was just okay, but when the 2 main female protagonists exchange houses, the plot and interest really picks up, and I ended up thoroughly enjoying this excellent story. Binchy's writing is workmanlike and easy to read, but it is in her presentation and plotting that she really excels. The dual narrative, in which she constantly switches back and forth between the events in Ireland and the events in America, works really well. The main joy of this novel is in the characterization and emotional growth of the 2 main women and of Rhea's children. Brian, her 8-year-old son, is a joy. Every time he opens his mouth, he puts his foot in it, to the exasperation of Annie, his older sister. One thing I did notice was that Binchy has all the men acting offstage while all the women are very much to the forefront. My rating for this novel is B. I also reread Fathers and Sons by Ivan Turgenev. Arkady Nikolaevich is returning home after graduating from university. His father, Nikolai Petrovich, is excitedly waiting for him. Arkady has brought a friend with him, Yevgeny Vasiliev Basarov, who professes to be a nihilist and has no respect for anything or anyone. Pavel Petrovich, Arkady's uncle, and Basarov very quickly form an intense dislike to one another, as they argue over their respective positions. Pavel Petrovich cannot stand Basarov's attitude. He calls him contemptuously Sir Nihilist. Their approach to life is so far apart that they cannot understand one another. Pavel Petrovich, speaking of German poets, said, "But now they have all turned chemists and materialists." "A good chemist is 20 times as useful as any poet," broke in Bazarov. "Oh, indeed," commented Pavel Petrovich, as though falling asleep. He faintly raised his eyebrows. "You don't acknowledge art then, I suppose?" "The art of making money or advertising pills," cried Bazarov with a contemptuous laugh. "Aha, you are pleased to jest, I see. You reject all that, no doubt. Granted, then you believe in science only." "I have already explained to you that I don't believe in anything. And what is science? Science in the abstract. There are sciences and there are trades and crafts, but abstract science doesn't exist at all." "Oh, very good. Well, and in regard to the other traditions accepted in human conduct, do you maintain the same negative attitude?" "What's this, an examination?" asked Bazarov. Pavel Petrovich turned slightly pale. "The writing is excellent, the story is involving and engrossing, and the characterization is superb. My rating for this novel is A. I also reread 4 of Shakespeare's plays in March. The first was the second part of Henry VI, also called the first part of the contention of the 2 famous houses of York and Lancaster. Henry VI Part 2 is a political play rather than a drama of human interaction or development. It tells of England's collapse into the anarchy and civil strife of the Wars of the Roses due to selfish ambition unleashed by the weakness of a young and indecisive ruler. I read Henry VI Part 3, also called The True Tragedy of Richard Duke of York and the Good King Henry VI. Henry VI Part 3 is also concerned with civil disorder. The dissolution of the state is the major concern of the play, which describes the overthrow of King Henry VI. And just as the organisational principle of society, the state, is disrupted, so too the basic social bond of the family is disturbed. The play is intricately and expertly plotted, but the greatest accomplishment in the play is the creation of his first great villain, Richard. I read The Most Lamentable Tragedy of Titus Andronicus. This play is not for the faint-hearted. What is it about? Shakespeare tells us in Act 5, Scene 1. Aaron the Moor, a black-hearted villain, is speaking. "Why, assure thee, Lucius, 'twill vex thy soul to hear what I shall speak, for I must talk of murders, rapes, and massacres, acts of black night, abominable deeds, complots of mischief, treason, villainies, ruthful to hear, yet piteously performed. You have been warned." I also read Henry VI Part 1. This play commences the tetralogy of dramas dealing with the Wars of the Roses. This play concentrates on the series of conflicts in which the French resisted English attempts to conquer them. The action starts after the death of King Henry V, who had led his forces to great victories, establishing English control over large stretches of France. In the course of the play, these territories are almost all lost. These misfortunes were the result of selfish ambitions, unchecked by a weak monarch's incompetence. I rate these plays as A because I'm sure I will read them again. I also read The Man with the Golden Gun by Ian Fleming. James Bond has surfaced after having been missing for a year. He insists on reporting directly to M, but what does he have on his mind, and what is his state of mind, and what is M going to do about it and about 007? The previous two Bond stories I read I didn't enjoy, but this one I did, so I rate it a B. And I also read about and listened to the pieces for March in Year of Wonder by Clemency Burton-Hill for my Year of Wonder challenge, and I donated £2 to Book Aid International on completion. For my April TBR, I'm going to read Peace Like a River by Lief Enger, as recommended by Joey of Game of Authors. I also plan to begin reading Quicksilver by Neal Stephenson, which is 916 pages long, for my Chunksters Reading Challenge, and a reread of Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert with Matthew of Maybe Book Club. And now here's a quick recap, and I'll be back soon with another BookTube video.